أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
وعليكم السلام.
I'm not the Khatib. I just want to give you good news that Alhamdulillah we are progressing towards our project, the parking lot. That's the condition to get a full permit for our new masjid. Inshallah, by this Ramadan, we will get the permit for Ramadan. But if we didn't get the opportunity to demolish this place and make a parking lot here, we're not going to get the full permit. We have to come back here. And to get back there, it's going to be a fight. It's going to be a big problem. Because you can get a permit until you demolish this. And if we demolish this, that means we might have to shut down the masjid or what we can do, because to demolish this, to build a parking lot in order to get to that masjid, it's going to be a problem. And that's the condition of the city. So we come up with this project, 200 people, $1,000, which might be easy for some people, hard for some people. And I want to give you a good news that we collected from you 42,000. Allahu Akbar. We got 50 pledges. We have 10. We still have to contact them. But with all that, we collected 42,000. We are progressing. And today, I don't want to take too much from your time. I just need to get 20 people. If I could get 20 people for this $1,000, I will be very happy. Can anyone raise his hand? Or if, so I don't want to take too much time from you, just fill up those forms. This is a request, a big request from you. Without you, we cannot make it. And we coming back to you. This is the day of Jumma. We're asking you, we're begging you. Please help us to build this for our generation. $1,000. Fill up your form in here, your information. Put your credit card if you can, or just put your name and phone number. If you are busy, we will contact you. If you cannot pay $1,000 in one time, we understand. You just pledge. Tell us we can go with you. If you want to pay $100 each month, however you want to do it, I will contact you personally and we will work it out. But please don't walk out today without filling up those forms. And this for the people outside too under the tent. We are begging you, we are asking you, please take us seriously and take those forms with you and fill them up or fill them up today. The minimum thing you can do, the minimum thing is if you cannot donate, take those with you and try to persuade somebody to donate who you know he has the money. So please look at the cards in front of you and don't leave them there. Just try to collect them, fill them up, and give them back to us. Jazakumullah khairan. Alhamdulillah. Just now, $9,000. And this person, I know them personally. This is not the first 9,000, but this is not the first 10,000. This is not the first 20,000. May Allah bless them and bless their family. And they want you to take this as an example, just $1,000. If you cannot give $1,000, if you cannot give a 9,000, give $1,000. Jazakumullah.
الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله
الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونؤمن به ونتوكل عليه ونعوذ بالله من شرور انفسنا ومن سيئات اعمالنا ونشهد ان لا اله الا الله وحده لا شريك له واشهد ان محمدا عبده ورسوله قال الله تعالى في القران الكريم اعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والذي أرسل رسوله بالهدى ودين الحق ليظهره على الدين كله ولو كره المشركون يا أيها الذين آمنوا قولوا قولا سديدا يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون صدق الله العظيم وصدق رسوله الكريم وعلى آله الشاكرين الحمد لله رب العالمين. We thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we glorify Him, we praise Him, and indeed we bear witness that Him and Him alone is worthy of all worship and no one else's. And we ask that He send His and our best of blessings upon our beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, his family, his companions, and all those who will follow Him until time. Respected elders, dear brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi. I first of all like to thank the leadership of this masjid and all of you, the community at large, for almost being there at achieving a major milestone in the history of Muslims and Islam in Southern California. Inshallah, Masjid al-Nur, we will be able to pray, enjoy spiritually ourselves very soon in the new Musalla, and inshallah this will be the foundation for our generations to come. Sometimes, as they say in a marathon, the last mile is most difficult. So we are now at the last mile of this project. Inshallah ta'ala, as brothers had requested us to remind ourselves that before we leave today, to do that which we think we can afford to do to the best of our ability. Numbers don't matter. Intention and sincerity of our participation in helping this project come to fruition and completion is more important. This afternoon, I like to share some reflections on a book that I am reading. And the reason why I thought this is important for us to share this piece of information is because most of us are parents, are grandparents, we have children. If we don't, then we will have children. And we all invariably, there is nothing else more important in life. The most important thing in our life is to think what our generations to come will do. What legacy are we leaving behind for them? So I want to share some reflections on this aspect that I have run into, and I hope and pray that this will also be intriguing, interesting, informative for all of you as well. This book that I am reading is titled as iGen. iGen stands for Internet Generation. As you grow old, like me, having lost hair and children grown up, you begin to see What did I do in this dunya for my eternal life hereafter? And you begin to worry, you begin to be concerned. And such is my concern, and I like to share those concerns with you. So this author has spent a little more than 40 years, 4 decades, in surveying 4 different generations and the trends. So each generation has its own dynamic. We have certain cultural influences. We have other dynamics at play, and that shapes us. That forms our views, our perspectives, our values, by which we try to live. So over the course of the last 50 years, this social scientist has researched of each generation. Generation that I belong to, popularly known as boomers, people who are born between 45 and 65. And then the generation X, born thereafter from 65 to 85. And then the millennials, 85 to 2005 or 2000 thereabouts. And then the generation Z, as it is called popularly, or iGen, right? This is the generation that we will talk about today. And most of them are probably our children or grandchildren. Why is this important? Why is this important for us to understand about another group of people who may not necessarily be of our age group? It's important because this is the generation that will become our teachers, our community leaders, scientists, politicians, elected officials, public servants, and so on. They will be the leadership of the nation, of the society in which we live. So what we are living through today, good or bad, right or wrong, is the effect of the generation that worked before us or did not work before us. As a result, we are beneficiaries of some of the work that is done productively, meaningfully by generation before, or we are subjected to some challenges in our lifetime because of the work that was not done by the generation before. So what we do today is directly relevant for the future of our children and grandchildren. We have 2 choices. One choice is to be passive, not worry about it, say tawakkal ala Allah wa kafa billahi wakila. That is also good indeed, but without doing anything, our role, our part, only relying on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is basically abdicating our responsibility for ourselves, and that's why this is important. So this author has highlighted 10 trends, and comparatively speaking to what boomers did, what generation X did, and what iGen is doing in various areas in socio-political, economical, family, and so on and so forth. And certainly this is not the forum where I can share all about it, but I'm going to highlight some aspects of it so that it opens our mind, it encourages, inspires us to ask some difficult questions to ourselves and find answers. This author, this scientist, social scientist, does not provide answers, it provides data. Now data is irrefutable. Why? Because the data is an aggregated total of the last 5 generations, or 4 generations of 50 years. So this is a very, very solid research work that's done over a long period of time. About 11 million people were surveyed. So first, the title itself, the iGen, the internet generation. How did this new technological phenomenon has impacted this generation? So many of us, for example, in the masjid today, have perhaps read Quran on your iPhone. This probably was not even imagined, let alone 50 years, 10, 15 years ago. We don't have papers these days, right? So we do mostly, quote unquote, over online. So this generation has been born into this phenomenon. As a result, there are certain things that they do and don't do. And I'd like to offer some of these facts of this generation that impacts us in a variety of ways. For example, in 1970s, about 50 years ago, 45 years ago, it is said that more than 52% of teenagers, of people who are 18, 19, no more than 20, used to read books in paper form, right? Some of us can relate to that, obviously. So today in 2016 or 2015, this data, only 16% of the people actually read books. So my young brothers and sisters may argue, what's wrong with that? I'm reading anyways. I'm just reading in a different platform, a different medium. And here it is important, why it is important. The attention span, they did another survey of 100,000 freshmen. Freshman is like first year college. So 19 years, maybe 20 years. 100,000 in various campuses throughout the country. And the researcher automatically took a snapshot of the laptops that they work on during the course of your research or your school study. You know, the lifetime of a screen is 5 seconds. And they switch screens between screens every 19 seconds. These are factual numbers. 75% of the students, their computer windows were open for less than a minute. So what this means essentially is young people are completely unable to give attention to anything more than a minute or two. So if I, as a Khatib, stand here and give 35 minutes of lecture, chances are that the young people, according to this study, may take no more than 2 minutes of stuff that I'm talking about. The rest of it will be gone, will be ignored or dismissed or not remembered. That's all the attention span is. So this tells us now, as teachers, as community leaders, as parents, how do we navigate ourselves in capturing the imagination of our children in a value-based system that is diametrically opposite to the norm and the prevalent culture of the society. So if I am trying to teach my children about the importance of Tawheed, for example, I have 2 minutes to convince him or her in helping him or her understand the value, importance, wisdom of that extraordinarily centrally important idea and concept in a believer's life. And examples go on, many of this. This I generation now, their telephone plans, which probably parents and grandparents pay in most cases, they have unlimited data and limited talking time. What does it mean? It means essentially that I am not interested in talking to anybody. I don't want to talk to you. I want to use my data and talk to everybody else in a virtual world. And why again is this important? I want us to imagine now, how does this impact? So a child who is 7, 8, 9 years old, who has a telephone, who goes to elementary school or middle school, who has limited time, only calls mom and dad when he or she needs to be picked up, and does not have any live interaction with people who you can touch, feel, look at, and interact. So they live literally in a virtual world. And this has a direct ramification upon the value system of a person or persons. In our case, the society at large. So this is trend number one, and there are many examples of this which I would not be able to go in today. Maybe some other time I come in the evening and give you, share with you more details about each one of these aspects. There are 11 different trends that this data suggests. Number two, iGen is in a no rush to grow up as adults. What does it mean? It means that the childhood is lengthened beyond 18, 19, 20. In other words, the behavior, the demeanor, the language, the practices, the hobbies are all childlike. And the adulthood or adolescence is shortened. As a result, those who are growing up and those who will become leaders of our communities, of this masjid in next 10 years, 20 years, when the people who are serving today may not necessarily have the energy and the time to be able to do so, they will be the leaders. Now imagine their generations, what they would be like. So everything is chained, everything is connected, interconnected with each other. And the single most important point that I like to convey to us today, that no one of us is relieved from the responsibility of thinking along these lines. Even if you are not active in the masjid, even if you don't want to volunteer time in the masjid. I know you have children in your home. You have your own children or your siblings' children, nephews and nieces. And there is nothing that you would not sacrifice for the well-being of your children and grandchildren. And I gave this example before. If a bullet is coming toward me and I have a choice to either get myself hurt or save my child, no questions, no brainer. I will be in the middle and protect my child, right? And all of us will do that. That's in the physical space. How about the spiritual space? How about the intellectual space? Well-being of my children. The third trend that this author refers to is, which I believe I had alluded to, is in person no more. In other words, no personal interaction. So if you have not already noticed, when you are visiting a friend or a relative over dinner or on a weekend for brunch, make an intention to notice in the room that you are sitting in. Chances are, if not majority, most overwhelming majority, at least a minimal majority, half of them would be on their devices. Those devices could be cell phones, could be tablets, could be laptops, could be television, and so on. Screen time, essentially. So I don't want to interact with you personally. You know what's the prophetic tradition? When you don't see somebody for 3 days, Prophet used to inquire about them. Not of curiosity, but because he was extremely concerned about the well-being of that person who belongs to his community. Right? A genuine, authentic concern about the people who you live with, who you work with, who you pray with, and so on. Now, in this model, it is diametrically, I am seeing the person, but I don't want to talk to that person. And that person is no stranger to me. That person is my own relative, in many cases, my brother or sister or parents. And yet, the person is sitting next to me, but I'm not interacting with him or her. So imagine in 1400, almost 40 years later, the devolution of human society in terms of interaction has devolved to a point where two human beings knowing each other personally, related to, yet are willing not to talk to each other. Think about that for a moment. What does it do to the psyche, to the ability to have empathy towards, because I'm not talking to you at all. I don't know what your troubles are. I don't know what your challenges are. I don't know what your gifts are that I can be benefited from, and so on and so forth. Fourth, in sense of insecurity. And we may have heard this and have seen this in the virtual world. how many people like me. The more people like me in virtual space, I feel that much good, that much better. The likes of the Facebook, right? Or my reach. How many people I am reaching through my Twitter or tweeting activity? In other words, I am influencing people in a wide world. So the system applications provide you to stoke your ego that your reach today was X thousand. Y hundred number of people like you. So I feel good about it now. And I feel good only because I am insecure within me if nobody likes me. There's a study done within this research of 400,000 freshman college people in 100 different campuses. And here are the top 3 results. The mental and intellectual position that these young people are in. Keep in mind, these are 19, 20, 21-year-old young people who are in college. That means they had the economical wherewithal to go to college. These are not very poor children. Number 1, loneliness. In a time when the world is completely connected, the single most statistic of this young group of people in freshman college, they are lonely. They are surrounded by people, family, friends, but they are lonely. 78% of the young people said we are lonely. 49% of these young people said we are overwhelmingly anxious about everything. They are not at peace. And probably because not many people like them in the virtual world. Maybe because their word is not reaching out to millions of people. Because their models, their role models, are such popular figures in the world. And as a result, I am not content, I am not satisfied, I am not at peace within myself. Because other people are not admiring me. Right? So 49% are overwhelmingly anxious. 68% of the people are in deep depression and on medication. These are young people, 19, 20, 21. As someone said that this is a Prozac nation, that we are on pills. What does it do to the intellectual and spiritual well-being of a person when he or she at an age of 19 and 20 is on medication for deep depression, which is a clinical condition? We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us the tawfiq to be able to ask these very, very difficult questions to ourselves for our own sake and for the sake of our children and grandchildren. Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam were the most optimistic, hopeful person humanity has ever seen. You know, the famous instance that is reminded to us about optimism, about hope. Despite of all this dismal data, he said, sallallahu alayhi wasallam, if you see that the day of end is coming, everything is going to cease, time and space as we know it, and you have a mustard seed in your hand, a mustard seed which naked eye may not even be able to see fully. Your job is not to run away from the day that is coming to an end, but plant that seed. And you know that it is not going to grow anytime soon. And you also know that the end is coming, but yet your job, your duty is not to think about anything but to plant. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us the tawfiq to plant that seed today in Islamic Center of South Bay, in Masjid al-Nur, in offering and building and working hard to build this beautiful community and facility, inshallah ta'ala, for our generations to come. Astaghfirullah wa lakum. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد اللهم بارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive our sins and our mistakes and our shortcomings, known and unknown. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us the tawfiq to be grateful for everything that we are blessed with and not blessed with. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give Jannat al-Firdaus to those who have passed away in our community. Give the best of health to those who are sick and ill in our community. Particularly, I'm told Taqiq Khan is in a state of coma for quite some time after our surgery. May Allah give him the best of health and full and quick recovery and give his family best of sabr, inshallah. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. ربنا لا تزغ قلوبنا بعد إذ هديتنا وهب لنا من لدنك رحمة إنك أنت الوهاب. اللهم اغفر لي ولوالدينا وللمؤمنين يوم يقوم الحساب. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين.
الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله. الله أكبر. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. آمين. قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. الله سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you to Brother Shakeel Syed for this beautiful khutbah. Inshallah, we now can learn how to talk to the future generation and how they can understand us and try to get the message within 2 minutes. I only have 2 minutes to talk to you guys and relay the announcements that we have. Tonight we have family night, so please join us inshallah. Next week's Khatib will be Brother Hassan Ayush. Please don't forget about this fundraiser or this project that we're working on. 200 people donating $1,000 each. Inshallah, we can complete this project as soon as possible before Ramadan. Don't forget to register your kids in the Quran Academy, as well as the weekend school. If you have any questions, we have the welcome booth outside. You can stop by, sign up. Your answers will be answered, or your questions will be answered over there. Please make dua for those who are sick. Brother Mustafa Arafat, Dr. Mustafa Arafat is in open heart surgery today, so please keep him in your dua. And Brother Taki Khan, he's in the hospital, please keep him in your dua as well. Please make dua for those who passed away.
الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. اللهم انصر الإسلام وأعز المسلمين وأعلم بفضلك راية الدين. اللهم انصر نصر دينك واجعلنا منهم واخذ من خذل دينك ولا تجعلنا منهم. اللهم اعز الناس اهل البأس عن المرضى اشفهم وانت الشافي لا شفاء الا شفاءك شفاء لا يغادر سقما. اللهم رب الناس اهل البأس عن المرضى اشفهم وانت الشافي لا شفاء الا شفاءك شفاء لا يغادر سقما. اللهم رب الناس اهل البأس عن المرضى اشفهم وانت الشافي لا شفاء الا شفاءك شفاء لا يغادر سقما. اللهم اشفهم شفاء لا يغادر سقما واجعل مرضهم كفارة لذنوبهم ومغفرة لسيئاتهم وتفريجا لكروبهم. اللهم يسر امرنا واجبر كسرنا واحفظ ضعفنا وتذل فضلك خلاصنا. اللهم كن مع اخواننا المستضعفين في كل مكان خاصة في الارض وتحت كل السماء. اللهم عليك بالظالمين احكم ببعضهم واخرجنا من بين ايديهم مستعدين غانمين. اللهم اغفر لنا ولوالدينا ولمشايخنا ولمن علمنا ورسلنا من فضل علينا. ربنا اتنا في الدنيا حسنه وفي الاخره حسنه وقنا عذاب النار. صلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى اله وصحبه. Thank you.
Choose the machines to see. This you can use it. Yeah, you can use the machine. Oh. Just choose the